bless Biafra. In him we trust. Shout it, sing it, all hail Biafra. God bless Biafra. We have emerged triumphant from all our foes. Through the crucible unscathed, we passed victorious. Our trumpets pealing the glorious song. Play it, sing it, all hail Biafra. Oh, hail Biafra. We shall always remember all that perished in the struggle for our freedom. All hail our heroes. Our prayer shall be known both day and night. Say them always, all hail Biafra. All hail Biafra. Now our star shines everywhere. We crave humility. God guide and protect us all. All hail your wisdom, shielding us from fury, unleashed by our enlightenment. Biafra, Biafra, shining forever.
As I write with my pen of ink to a flat, thin surface of this white material paper, it's almost like wiping my tears with tissue papers while I remember the trauma of ill-fated Nigerian government against the Igbos of then territory, Biafra, which is now forced into Nigeria through military occupation led by General Yakubu Gowon in 1967, and so the war began.
My name is Charles Ikekwere, and I'm onye Olu, Umuaka Olu. The Civil War which started, I would say, started in 1966. In 1966, January 15th coup, I was still a student. That was my primary 6th year, and I was in Zaria. And the same year, 1966, I took the military exam to go into Defense Academy. But before the result came out, and before finishing my elementary school, the crisis started. And I was in Zaria with my senior brother, Dr. Philip Ikekwe, may he rest in peace. And what my brother did was to make sure I left Zaria, because he was with the bank. So I left Zaria and went back to East, and that 1966 finished my primary school exam, and 1967 I joined the Biafran Army.
Oh, my name is James Wabeke. I'm from Eziamantega in Isialangwa, local government in Biafra land. I was young, very young, that they could not use me for anything at that time, because they were doing conscriptions of young men who could go to Biafran war. Many times they came to our compound, the Biafran army. They couldn't take me because they figured I could not, I was underage.
My name is Joseph Ikechukwu. I'm from Okwele in Okigwe province. Biafra to me is my homeland, is a sovereignty, my nation, and that is why we are trying to restore it. So Biafra to me is my permanent nation, my country of sovereignty.
My name is Chinyere Onyechere. I'm from Okigwe province in the great land of Biafra. Biafra is freedom, Biafra is joy, Biafra to me is security, Biafra is to me a great way of life. Especially, the most important is freedom.
My name is Ndubisi Chijoke. I am the IPOB Regional Coordinator for the Pacific. I hail from the part of Biafra that is called Uzakole in Abia State. I was 6 years old. I remember my uncle and the people in the village gathering, listening to radio. That time, that's all was available. And we were hearing about bombshell here and there and things like that. It continued until it hit Umuahia, that is approximately 12 miles from Uzakole, and Umuahia fell. There were prisoners, which included my uncle that time, because they were accused of selling illicit fuel. They were all released and asked to flee for their safety. So down the line, Uzakole fell also. By then my father had already come back from the north and lost all his things, his businesses, back there in the north in Kano.
But let's take things back a little bit by understanding the essence of this disagreement that led Dim Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu to declare the Republic of Biafra. The Nigerian Biafran War, 1967 to 1970, was a defining event in the history of post-colonial Nigeria. Nigeria's independence in 1960 marked the beginning of attempts to build a strong, united and prosperous nation in Africa's most populous, pluralistic country.
Well, there are a lot of things that happened in the north, like the massacre of the Igbos after the military coup of January 1966. And all I could remember was the Igbos at that point in time, because a lot of the Igbos were killed. And everybody was trying to get out of the north and get back home. When I got home was to continue my education in elementary 6 and finish the exam towards the end of the year. The crisis continued. The Biafran people were preparing, and after the elementary school, I had nothing else to do because of the anger, and I had nothing to do but to think of joining the Biafran army, which I did and was trained in Isu training depot.
Our people will say if they send a child to an errand and he doesn't come back quickly, they will say, "Did you go to Ntalaku?" So that's where we ended up. But on our way, we met with some villagers that blocked our way, said that we couldn't pass through and things like that. We were strangers to them. And that is basically where my father lost all his things, because we are channeled to go through a big river, and to cross to the other side, there's no way the bicycle could make it. So we went through that river. My father abandoned everything, the bicycle. He carried only whatever he could hold in his hands. So when we crossed over to another village, those people were very, very welcoming, amiable, and they took us to an elementary school that has been abandoned because of the war.
We were in our village till late, I think late 69, when the war came into Aba and Omai. At that time, the sound of machine guns and the plane, there were a lot of raids. The plane were coming to the markets, dropping bombs and killing a lot of people. As a result, my family and other people within the village, we went into the bush, into one of the biggest bush we had in our area.
Yet the tension arising from the conflicting interests and aspirations of the country's diverse ethnic groups intensified. The British had made little effort to unite the different ethnic groups in a collective consciousness during the colonial period.
Being a young man, when I joined the army, when I was, Jiriba, a lot of they will have complaining, "Hey, this young man, how could you be in the army fighting? What did your mother say?" But knowing where I was coming from, I knew what I wanted. After 6 months, Jiriba with the 6th Battalion, I was then recruited to guide Captain Gabriel, who is from also OG, and I was his bodyguard for a period of 4 months. So my contribution was as a infantry soldier. We go to the front, we fight. We lost, to be frank with you, we lost a lot of our boys, but the morale was high, and the cooperation of people then was highly united.
And we were there until the Nigerian soldiers came in, and our elders went out and saw them, talked with them. They advised our elders that people should come out of the bush and march straight to a particular location in Avo. That's where we were. But the saddest part of the whole thing was, as we were coming out of the bush, we saw a lot of our young men that were shot dead on the road, and they made everybody, men, not necessarily, when I say men, I'm talking about young boys who were maybe 12 years or 10 years or 14, and the women, young ladies, all of us were raising our hands, walking to the camp where they wanted us to be. But it was very traumatic, because you see all these graphics, dead bodies, and even some people were shot while we were walking. We saw the army shooting our young men, getting them down. So we could not talk. Nobody could say anything. It was very sad and fearful.
Its indirect rule system of administering Nigeria undercuts any chances of promoting social solidarity among various ethnicity.
So when we crossed over to another village, those people were very, very welcoming, amiable, and they took us to an elementary school that has been abandoned because of the war, and created it and made it a makeshift refugee camp. And that's where we stayed. As things went on, we were asked to keep moving towards a side. I've forgotten what it's called, but I know they said there is a Biafra 1 and a Biafra 2. And the Biafran soldiers were about to decapitate the enemies on the other side so that we can break free. On our way to that place, I saw things I have never seen in my life. I was carrying my little brother on my back. I was given a choice to give him up, meaning they would kill him because he was too young, like 1 year, 2 years old, and he couldn't walk. He would only walk like few steps and get tired, and I would carry him. And because they suspected that he could cry, they didn't want him to go. Even my parents said, well, they put the two of us in comparison, say, okay, let's give him up. I said no. And he knew what was being talked about. It wasn't like a secret to him. I turned around, looked him in the eye, I said, Chijioke, being his first name, they said if he cries, then two of us will be killed to save the other people. So on our way to break through Biafra 2 or Biafra 1, I've forgotten which one it was, a pregnant lady gave birth right in front of everybody. And they didn't want the child to take the first breath because the first breath will be followed by a cry. They cut off the child's head to save the entire masses. Our Biafran soldiers fought very, very gallantly. So many people were killed on our side and killed the other side also. There we were squatted. There was no place to stay. There was not an empty ground. It is either people's luggages or dead bodies. I myself, they will cover it with like palm trees and make you either sit on top or just lean on a dead person.
During that time, I should say, almost everybody I knew was very poor. To eat was hard. And there were a lot of sick children around us. And going through what we went through, and remembering how some of our young men were shot both in front of us and before us. That brought a very sad memory, become a traumatic situation that one can hardly forget. They also, at the time, the soldiers were taking the young girls that were very underage at the time, picking them up as wives. They said that they are taking them, and they come to the parents, before the parents, and they took the young ladies.
Worse still was that the forced amalgamation of 1914 was the problem, and so it culminated into a deep-sighted fuse that brought anguish and pain on the people of both regions, who were never one and had nothing in common by virtue of language, culture, tradition, and way of life.
Well, after the war, like my senior who was with me whom I was living with in Zaria, the bank was able to take him from Zaria to Lagos. So after the war, he came back and took me to Lagos. Unfortunately, on our way going to Lagos, because of my appearance, because I looked like, even though I don't have the uniform, I don't have anything showing that I was a Biafran soldier, they knew, the Nigerian soldiers who met me at Asaba knew that I was, I must have contributed in the war. So I was detained for hours, and they wouldn't let me travel with my group. So until later in the evening, around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, when their commander came and asked, what is this man doing here? They said, well, we think he's the Biafran soldier. So the commander asked them to release me, that I should be left to go. That is when I joined another motor to go into Lagos.
We are Biafrans, and when we talk about Biafrans, it's basically being talked about the Igbos. Yes, we are hard-headed, but we are very, very resolute. People were sleeping as the zoo were planning to eradicate us. But God sent our leader, our indefatigable leader, Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, to come, who started beating the drum, shouting for nearly 10 years ago what was happening, and started calling the name Biafra, the name that was like a taboo. Now he created the indigenous people of Biafra IPOB, and created it in such with a foundation that it cannot be broken. He created the command and control that we follow today, a structure that is even hard for any country to break through, because you have to go through a lot of steps, hurdles, because there are, if you break any step, another step will emerge and replace it.
The British are to be blamed in the most unambiguous terms, as their interference in the polity of the people through slavery and colony cannot be separated. As the benefit of hindsight has revealed, the Nigerian Civil War was to become the very sign of post-independence African wars, from the invasion of Uganda by Tanzania in 1978 to 1979, to conflicts, whether brief or long, drawn out in Sudan, Somalia, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Cote d'Ivoire, Rwanda, and Zimbabwe, and as a topological prefiguring of today's situation in the Niger Delta.
That was, we all knew that was nonsense. But at that point in time, what can you do? You already accepted the defeat. We knew it was nonsense. And that is what is leading to what it is today, because isolation of the Igbo people. Like I said, after the secondary school, I went back to Lagos and I joined the Central Bank. The treatment of the Igbo people, which has been exhibited today, started immediately after the war, and we knew life would never be the same. The anger was everywhere. Those who had money in the bank couldn't get their money. They were only given a fraction, 20 pounds, no matter the amount of money you had in your account. Those who were traders could not get their stores, could not get their house. So there was a lot of anger, but there's not much you can do.
I heard of IPOB in 2012, 2013. Then I joined IPOB in 2015. The Biafrans have been persecuted for so many years. We have lost more than 5 million people, 5 million Biafrans. But the war alone took up over 3 million Biafrans. So there's nobody who will be president of Nigeria for we to go back. All we are doing now is forward ever, backward never. So all we are fighting is to restore Biafra, no going back.
So as I was watching it, as I was surfing for a Nollywood movie, I saw something that says Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, Biafra. I said, what? Biafra? I know my parents have said something in the past regarding people are not, regarding the civil war, the Nigerian Biafran civil war, and how Biafra is meant to them in those days, and how everybody is mute about Biafra, nobody mentions it. I don't know if it's a command by the Nigerian government, the zoo government or something, but nobody mentions Biafra. So when I bumped into it on YouTube, and then I saw somebody says, somebody answering Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, and that he was captured, he was in prison. So my interest piqued because I've had my parents mention Biafra. So I listened to one of his broadcasts. It was amazing. It was fantastic. I don't know who he was, but what he was speaking spoke to me in regards to what I've had my parents, my mom and my dad say about Biafra. So from there on, I listened to a couple of his broadcasts, and I was enthralled. I was happy. I was, oh my God, we have such a personality in the Igbo land. And he's talking about what I've had before as a child. So from there on, I decided to seek for where I can register or ask about Biafra. So I went to shop in one of these African shops. So I was asking the teller there, I said, do you know where I can get registered as a member? Because I've listened to this guy called Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, and he was such a great personality. And the topic, he was addressing Nigeria and all the insecurities and all the subjugation that we've been suffering in Nigeria. So they told me, oh, the guys that were there, they are African men. Some of them said, oh, shut up your mouth, or what are you talking about, Biafra? Here, come to our church next Sunday, be a member of a church. I said, are you crazy? I'm here specifically to ask you about IPOB because I want to register. So one of the guys there, I think it's from Middle Belt or something like that. It's not even an Igbo man. He said, yes, I've heard of this man. He's a great man here. So the teller said, okay, I'll look for a number. So he got me connected to I think the coordinator in Los Angeles, my area, and from there on I registered, and I've never looked back since then. That's how I got into IPOB.
Occurring when they did, so soon after the Nigerian independence in 1960, the secession of Biafra and the subsequent civil war signified the shaky foundation of the nation-state in ex-colonial Africa, the potential for ethnic discord, competition over resources.
To be frank with you, I lost 11 young men from my immediate kindred during the last civil war. Young men of the same age with me. I had a lot of friends in Enugu during the Civil War. I remember a particular friend, Ijom Okonkwo, who was killed in front of me during the Civil War, during the war in Ochi. My concern today is, again, like we started before, we had nothing. Most of our soldiers then went to war with cutlass. You cannot go to war with cutlass. Today, the same thing. My fear is, if anything should break out as we speak, how can ndị Igbo defend onwe ha? What do they have? They do not have much to defend themselves. Talking from experience from here, I don't know actually what they have. I'm concerned about that because it will not be the same thing like before. This time we cannot. If anything, if any war should break out again in the name of the word Biafra, we can't afford to lose it. It's either we succeed this time or we perish all. So it is something that Ndi Igbo get sit down and think seriously. Based on our previous experience, if we are going in the second time, are we really ready? We know why we lost before. We know why. Are we prepared for that? Those mistakes we made then? Are we ready to correct them now so that Ndi Igbo will not continue to suffer what we are suffering in the hands of these animals who call themselves leaders of Nigeria?
I miss a lot of people, especially my relatives that were shot dead on their way coming back from war. The very young, bright guys. And I should say, I miss all our gallant men that were killed during the war. I missed everybody because what took us into the war was just. The war was a just war for the indigenous people because they, according to what we were told, Gowon supposed to keep the Aburi agreement. He didn't keep it. Then they decided to turn around and bring war on the indigenous people of Biafra, thinking that they will kill everybody. I think the plan was to wipe out the indigenous people of Biafra, and it didn't work. I should say, I miss the plan that was set up by the Ebo leader Odumegwu Ojukwu. He wanted the Biafrans to be on their own and live a better life. I should say I miss everybody.
Well, we have been screaming. We have all our information on YouTube. We speak to people in the street, and the world right now is the U.S. government, is the British government, is all power, is the German government. So we've been talking, and some of them have their embassies in Nigeria, and they cannot pretend not to hear or see all the killings that have been going on. So they just have to practice the democracy that they preach, and listen to our plight, and listen to all this insecurity, and listen to all this subjugation. Fulanis are foreign in our land, and they are trying to come to our land and usurp. They kill people at night, they destroy people's property, and the foreign governments that we have in Nigeria presently, they cannot say they haven't seen that. So we have to keep on taking our stories to Twitter, to YouTube, to any social media, so the world can hear us. But whether they hear us or not, we are here. We're going to keep pursuing it. Britain just recently have their referendum, and we've been asking about this referendum. And their citizen, Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, is a citizen of Britain, and they cannot say that they haven't seen that he was a rendition from Kenya to Nigeria, and they haven't spoken up and worked on behalf of their citizens. So we have to keep on pushing in social media, and we are being heard. Slowly by slowly, we are going to get there. But whether they like it or not, Biafra is going to come, because that's all we have. That's all we have. We need our security. We need our freedom.
IPOB is different from other agitating groups because IPOB is a freedom organization. We are here determined to fight, and we are fighting for the restoration of our homeland, which is the Republic of Biafra, which has been which has lasted for almost 1,000 years before colonization. So all we are fighting is, my purpose is to restore Biafra, because Biafra is the only country we know.
IPOB members worldwide is to remain resolute, remain committed, and to know that the 30th of May is our National Remembrance Day for our departed heroes and heroines, and that this is something that we must do, especially our generation. We cannot give it up to other generations to do, because it is this generation that saw the war or inherited what our parents did, and we cannot leave it to our children. Especially in this day, there are more Biafrans scattered all over the world in diaspora. And we are having children. Those children that we are having, especially here in America, even though they know they are Biafrans, but they may not be able to do what we are supposed to do. We cannot hand them the bag.
This documentary is not in full and also cannot be explicitly consumed as one, but it is a special tribute to the Memorial Day of 30th May 1967, which will continue yearly to remember us of our fallen heroes and heroines who fought that we may be alive today. And as we forge ahead in the quest for this struggle to restore Biafra, it is important that we made it clear to the international communities that we shall never stop until we get an independent state of Biafra.
As an Igbo man, I respect Nnamdi Kanu. I see him as a brilliant young man. Again, I wish the entire Igbo nation, Igbo people, Igbo tribe would team together to support this young man. And knowing fully well that at his age, he's too young. Definitely, left alone, he might make some mistakes. We have adults who knew what I'm talking about, who went through the previous civil war, who knew if another mistake is made, it's going to be costlier than it was before. So I really believe the IPOB, they are working hard, but again, the unity, the disunity among the Igbo people, even particularly the youths, who are now, some people are claiming they am this, but the unity is not there, as it's not strong as it's supposed to be.
Let me tell you, if you're an authentic IPOB member, nothing can move you out from this freedom struggle. IPOB members, we are dogged, we are disciplined, we are formidable, we don't mind any obstacle in front of us. Recently, we've seen that Nigerian government has been pushing us in the social media, and we have this our media warriors, and they are pushing hard. And then I can't even give them advice, because IPOB members, when you meet them, you know that they are people. You cannot push them around. So we are here. I can't give them any advice at all. Just like myself, we will do all we can under our power, financial, media-wise, sharing, preaching, spreading our issues until we get this Biafra.
Yeah, because I mean, the young men today, their agitation could easily be traced to frustration. Look at what is happening to Igbo people. Look at what is happening in Olo as we speak. Look at what is our young men for the past 20 years. No matter their qualification, they are always treated as second-class citizens. Igbo people are just not Nigerians since after the war, because we are always second-class citizens. So the young men are frustrated. How could you be a third-class citizen in your own country? How could you be treated like non-person in your own country? The only concern I have today, watching what is going on, I don't blame the young men for being angry, but the only concern, to be frank with you, is that judging this period of time with this 1966 I talked about to 1970 when the war ended, is that the Igbos were more united then than they are today. I'm concerned about our young men today. There is no unity as we used to live, as we used to know the Igbo people, the Igbo man, compared to 1966. So my fear today, why, even though I support what they're doing, to call attention to what is happening to them, but my fear today is that Igbo people are not united.
We have to be resolute and fight hard. And that means following the structure, believing in our leader, and not be part of autopilot, and not for your personal or self-aggrandizement. You have to be committed in many ways, including but not limited to being a member, paying your dues, recruiting IPOB members in different zones, attending meetings, being your brother's keeper, praying hard for our leaders' release with no condition, and believing in the DOS that is headed by Mazi Chike Doziem. This is the structure left in place when our leader said in his absence, if we look for him and we can't find him, power rests in the DOS, which is headed by Mazi Chike Doziem. And now in the United States, we have 4 regional coordinators, and those 4 regional coordinators are the pillars. They are the leaders of America. So let that be understood and followed, and we go by command and control.
All hail Biafra, land of the rising sun. We love and cherish. We have vanquished our enemies. All hail Biafra. God bless Biafra. In him we trust. Shout it, sing it. All hail Biafra. God bless Biafra. We have emerged triumphant from all our foes. Through the crucible unscathed, we passed victorious. Our trumpets pealing the glorious song. Play it, sing it, all hail Biafra. Oh, hail Biafra. We shall always remember